Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome to the Daily Fix. I'm so happy you guys are here. Today is December the 9th. It is a beautiful Tuesday in my neck of the woods. The sun is finally coming out. So, y'all know I need sun, okay? So, the sun is supposed to come out today. I looked at my weather app and it said sunshine. So, I said, okay, it's going to be a beautiful day. So, wherever you are today, I hope you guys have a beautiful day as well. Today is our public session day, so we're live on Instagram, we're live on TikTok. Well, I haven't gone live on Instagram just yet. And then, of course, we are live um, all across the world. We have our TDF family in the YouTube chat. I'm so happy to see you guys. This is where you need to be every morning, every weekday morning at 8:30 Central Standard Time. We go live in the Daily Fix and we talk about different issues related to our own personal growth and well-being. So if you are on TikTok, if you are on Instagram, if you are on the Patreon, but you don't have a paid subscription yet, then we are inviting you in so that you can see what we do every week in the Daily Fix. I wanted to invite you guys into the Daily Fix today because on Thursday, we have the Who Am I workshop, and it is free for anybody who has a Daily Fix membership. So make sure that you join the Daily Fix. I'll put the QR code up for a minute. Make sure that you join the Daily Fix because on Thursday at 6 o'clock my time, Central Standard Time, we're going to be having the Who Am I workshop. And that is a workshop that has been asked from all corners of the earth. Okay. So we want you guys to join the Daily Fix, become a member so that you can get access to that workshop on Thursday. All right. And that workshop is all about personal identity, knowing who you are before you go into the new year. So I'll post about that today in my stories on my Instagram and TikTok. But yeah, go to thedailyfix.co so that you can get a subscription to the Daily Fix and you'll automatically get access to the workshop on Thursday. It is virtual, so you can join from anywhere in the world. All right, it'll be virtual. Okay. So if you're on Instagram and TikTok, welcome to the Daily Fix. This is what we do every morning here. If you've ever said, I wish I could work with Brittany, you need to be in the Daily Fix because that right now is the only way that you can work with me and get different feedback. We do our live sessions every day, and then every Friday in the Daily Fix, the tribe is on a Zoom call with me where we do our Q&As, but it's really your chance to ask questions and get feedback. So welcome, welcome, welcome to all of our visitors. I'm happy that you guys are here. But if this is your first time catching a Daily Fix Live, you know, buckle in. That's what I'm going to say. Strap in, okay? Because we have a tough topic. For the month of January, we have been having the conversation about unloading baggage, right? So before the new year, I wanted our tribe to be prepared for 2026 by having less baggage. So all of our conversations this month has been about addressing some of the things that we carry and we don't even realize we're carrying it, right? We started this conversation off talking about grief and how sometimes we're grieving things, and because we're moving so quickly, we don't even realize that we're grieving, right? We don't even realize that there's some heavy stuff that we've been packing with us because we've just been trying to survive. We've been trying to make sure the kids are okay. We've been trying to get to the next moment. And we never stopped and realized that the reason why I feel so heavy is because I've been carrying some things that maybe I can let go of, right? And sometimes I don't get to let it go, but I can learn how to carry it in a different way. So that was the conversation that we opened this month with. And now we're moving in a little bit deeper. This week, I want to talk to you guys about forgiveness. Because, good Lord, okay, carrying unforgiveness is a heavy burden, it's a heavy load. Yesterday, I talked about the people that we may need to forgive. So if you're in the Daily Fix, you guys heard me have that conversation yesterday. If you're joining the Daily Fix today, you can go watch that session because it was a really good session about sometimes there's people in our lives that we need to forgive, but we don't know how to forgive them. And so yesterday I gave some reframes and some techniques to look at situations in a way that would allow me to reframe the experience. Okay. So yesterday was forgiveness of others. Today is going to be forgiveness of ourselves. Today is forgiveness of self. All right, okay. I'm ready to have this conversation. If you're ready to have this conversation in the chat, let me hear it. Say, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. Ready, 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 ready. If you feel like you have some things you need to forgive yourself for, say, me. That's me. You can just put me in the chat or put a finger up. Hey, Deb, the counselor. I did meet you Saturday. Good to see you. Very good. So if you're ready, put ready in the chat. All right. All right. I see the me's on TikTok. So we got some things we want to forgive ourselves for. Listen, you don't make it out of this world. You do not make it out of this world without coming to a place in your life where you may need to forgive yourself for some stuff. Right. And I think, again, the issue is nobody teaches us. Like, nobody ever taught me self-forgiveness. Nobody sat me down and explained to me, how do I deal with the parts of my life that maybe I did play a hand in how things ended. Maybe I did, make some mistakes. Maybe I did get some stuff wrong. And I have this shame and this regret and this anger towards myself because I wish I would have made a different decision. Right. So we're going to have that conversation today. It's going to be a shaky one, all right? So if you're somewhere where you can take some notes, take some notes. If you're somewhere where maybe you just need to cry a little bit, just shed a tear or so. Okay, I give you guys full permission, all right, to shed a tear or two. Okay, I'm gonna leave this one up. Wait, no, that's not the right. Okay, I'm ready to hop in. So let's go ahead and get started. If you guys are looking for how to join the Daily Fix, go to the dailyfix.co so that you can become a member and you can get access to the Who Am I workshop on Thursday. All right, let's pull out my notes. Every time I go live on all these platforms at one time, I have such a hard time trying to navigate everything. Okay, we're going to put that there. We're going to put TikTok over here. Okay. And then my notes over here. Oh, that's not my notes. Okay. So let's hop into it. Forgiveness is inner work, first and foremost. Self-forgiveness is all inner work that we do by ourselves. We do it in solo. And it's work that nobody can do for you. Right. So this is why most times when we're dealing with a lot of shame, having a hard time taking accountability, a lot of self-neglect, a lot of harsh self-talk, self-forgiveness most times happens when we stop and go into therapy or we go into our spiritual environments. And I realize that there's some things that I can probably do differently with my relationship with self. Okay. I want to talk about the fact that when we go through life, I think sometimes we forget that as you're moving through life, you're constantly changing, you're constantly evolving. And sometimes the person that I had to be to survive a situation, I'm not always proud about that version of me, right? I'm not always proud about how that version of me showed up in the world. I'm not always proud about how certain things turned out, right? And so this is where we can have a lot of regret for who we had to be to survive, right? So a lot of our shame and regret that we have to forgive ourselves for unfortunately comes from the protective parts of you, and we'll talk about that today. So I want to first break down what self-forgiveness actually is, because there is sometimes there's a misconception. We talked about forgiveness of others, and the same way we have misconceptions of what forgiveness actually is for other people. I want to talk about what true self-forgiveness is for yourself. A lot of people have a hard time embracing self-forgiveness because they think it means that you're letting yourself off the hook for something, right? Like you're not holding yourself accountable. And that's not what true self-forgiveness is. There's four components of self-forgiveness. The first one is acceptance. In order for me to truly forgive myself, I have to face my truth without distorting the truth. I have to face my truth without distorting the truth. So this is where we have to be able to tell ourselves the ugly truth of whatever the situation was, whatever it was I did, whatever it was I said, whoever it was that I hurt. I have to be able to tell the truth without distorting it. And I say without distortion because many times when we are stuck in shame or our ego gets in the way, we'll tell the truth, but we're going to tell the part of the truth that makes us look good. Right? We're going to tell the part of the truth that keeps me as the victim and not the one who was the victimizer. Right? So we'll tell the part of the truth that I can still see myself as a good person. Right? So first of all, to get to self-forgiveness, I have to be able to accept what the truth was without distorting it or trying to make it look pretty or trying to make it look better than what it actually was. If the truth is ugly, let it be ugly. If the truth is painful, let it be painful. But I have to accept the truth of the situation, not what I want it to be. The second part of self forgiveness is taking full responsibility. To take full responsibility, it means that I am acknowledging the impact of whatever my decision making was without going into shame. So, acknowledging the impact of what I did without going into shame about what I did. And we'll break down what shame is in a minute because shame feels like an emotion, but it's also a logical thought process as well. So I have to take full responsibility. And then I have to uh, insert compassion when I'm practicing self forgiveness. Compassion means that I am recognizing my own humanity and my own limitations, right? To truly forgive myself, it's to first and foremost acknowledge that because I am a human being, I am subject to make errors. I am not perfect. I do not have it all together. I have good days, I have bad days. Self compassion allows me to be human. There is no standard that I'm supposed to be like Jesus all the time. I'm allowed to make some bad decisions. I'm allowed to have some bad days, and I can have some bad moments. Bad moments don't make me a bad person, right? And the fourth part of self forgiveness is commitment. This is where you decide how you want to show up differently in the future. So, this is the change behavior. All right. You can't get self forgiveness without change behavior. So, many people struggle to forgive themselves for certain behaviors, but it's because you keep doing the behavior, right? Right? You can't say, I forgive myself, and then turn around and go do the same behavior that you just forgave yourself for, right? So, commitment is the change behavior. I forgive myself, and now that I know better, I'm going to do better. All right. So, those are the four pillars of self forgiveness: acceptance, responsibility, compassion, and commitment. Self forgiveness is not avoidance. Okay. Self forgiveness is not avoidance. That means that I'm not making excuses for my behavior. I'm not making excuses for what happened. I'm not making excuses pretending like the harm wasn't real, right? I'm not, and that's for others and self, right? I'm not pretending like I didn't hurt people. Oh, it wasn't that bad. I didn't do that to you. That never happened, right? I'm not excusing it. I'm not minimizing it, shrinking the impact, and I'm not forgetting as if I can erase what happened, right? That is not self-forgiveness. So when people get to a place and they say, "Oh, it don't bother me no more," that's not forgiveness. That's me trying to erase the impact as if it's not there anymore, and that's not helpful. All it does is put it in the closet, and eventually, everything we put in that closet, we have to deal with. Does that make sense? All right. Um, I want to give you guys a technique for self-forgiveness. And for many of you, this will be your homework. Homework, homework, everybody got homework. Okay. Let me see if I can work my screen. Work my screen. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. How we doing, TDF? I'm trying to make sure. Okay, there. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Jasmine. Okay. All right. So this is my self-forgiveness triangle. For everyone in the Daily Fix, you guys will get a copy of this when we upload this video in Patreon. So there are three components to self-forgiveness, or three questions that you should ask yourself when you are trying to forgive yourself, right? The first question that you want to say, ask yourself, what happened? Right? I have to first acknowledge what happened, not the edited version, but you have to acknowledge the full truth. When I acknowledge what happened, it loses its power the moment that I start to name what happened. When I'm acknowledging what happened, this is where, when you guys hear me answer questions, I'm listening for certain things. I'm listening for emotions. I'm looking for storylines. I'm looking for how someone describes their situation. So when I'm acknowledging what happened, I'm looking for my emotions to come to the surface, right? I feel, right? So when I didn't follow through on, something somebody asked me to do, I felt disappointed. I felt angry. I felt embarrassed. I felt shameful. I felt, um, you know, trying to think of all the other bad emotions that come with that. This is what we need our emotions will, right? But you're going to name the emotion. You're not going to say, for everyone who's new to me, if this is your first time catching up, or if this is your first time working with me, okay? What you're not going to say is, I'm feeling some type of way. That's not a descriptor. That's not an emotion. That tells you nothing about what you felt. So, what we're trying to do here is get really specific. When I'm acknowledging what happened, it's not just acknowledging my behavior, but it's also acknowledging how I felt in that moment, right? So if I lied to somebody, I can acknowledge I lied. When so and so asked me to do something, I lied because I didn't want to let them down. I lied because I was trying to avoid conflict. I lied because I thought I was going to be able to do it. I didn't realize I was overextending, right? So I'm acknowledging exactly what happened. You don't have to add more to it and you don't have to minimize it, but we want to be specific about what happened. After we've acknowledged what happened, then you come into this point number two, and you acknowledge why it happened. The why is important. The why is important. If you acknowledge what happened, but you don't get to the why it happened, then you will live in embarrassment and in shame. Okay? For everybody just joining, this is the Daily Fix, okay? This is what I do every morning in my community. Right now, you guys are being led into our morning session. If you want to be a part of this morning session every morning, then just go to thedailyfix.co. Now, today we're talking about self-forgiveness. So if you're like, what is she talking about? We're talking about self-forgiveness this morning, all right? So point number two, the first point, acknowledge what happened. The second thing is I have to acknowledge why. This is the part a lot of people skip, because my why gives me context. My why helps me understand myself better. My why helps me see how there may have been some other things going on that led me into that decision making in the first place. Right? You're not justifying the behavior, but you're trying to get context for the behavior. Right? I'll give you guys my classic example. Years and years ago, when I worked at the hospital, I went to, when I would get off work, okay, if I had a very stressful day, I would, on my way home, there was a Wendy's. I would stop by Wendy's and I would order a chocolate frosty and a large fry. And the fry had to be fresh fries, like I wanted them hot. Chocolate frosty, large fry. No, I did not dip my fries in the frosty. But that's what I wanted, a chocolate frosty and a large fry. So on this particular day, I pull up to Wendy's because I'm clearly having a day already. I ordered the chocolate frosty and large fry. And I don't know if I was on the phone or something. It was a lot going on in my car. I remember that. Pull up to the window. The lady hands me my order, but she only hands me one bag, which was um, like immediately I was puzzled because typically they give you two bags, one for your frosty or one for your fry, but they don't put them together. They don't put them together. And so she handed me one bag and I opened the bag and sure enough, it's the fry and the frosty together. And at this point, the frosty is melting because of the hot fry, right? And so that was my tipping point. I was like, why would you do it? Like, and I remember snapping at the lady. I was like, why would you do that? Like, that doesn't even make sense, right? And I paid and I left and that was it. And so I just drove off and I'm headed back home, right? And I'm gonna finish that story, but I'm gonna come back to the triangle really quick, right? So acknowledging what happened says, okay, I acknowledge that I went through the drive-through. My order wasn't done the way I expected it to be done. There's always anger comes from our expectations, right? So my order wasn't done the way I expected it to be done. And so in response to that, I was snappy and what I would consider disrespectful. Right. So that's acknowledging what happened. I didn't add anything to it. I didn't take anything away. I went through the drive-through. I got my order wrong and I snapped at the lady. That's acknowledging what happened. That's part one. Now, if we go into why it happened, right? I can say, well, it was clearly a stressful day because I only get Frosties and fries when I'm stressed. Right. So clearly it was a stressful day. I remember being on the phone. So I was in the middle of venting to somebody about why I was upset or stressed that day. So I'm on the phone talking to someone about why I'm upset. So that means I'm still elevated if I'm talking about it. Right. And then the lady hands me my thing. It failed my expectation, and now I'm upset, right? So the why gives context. The why says, okay, so you had other things going on in your life that already elevated your emotions, so that in this moment you didn't behave as your best self. You had a poor moment, but the moment didn't make me a bad person. So I can acknowledge, okay, I did these things, and I did it. Okay, in order to get to self forgiveness, I have to be able to say, I did it, right? So I did it, but I also understand that I did it because there were other factors that prevented me from being my best self in that moment. So it's not that I'm a bad person. I made a bad decision and I behaved poorly, but it didn't make me a bad person. So now we get to point number three. I'm gonna hop back to my story, right? So I get my frosty, get my fries, I drive to the house. By the time which was maybe a 3-minute drive, maybe 5 minutes if it was a stoplight, right? It wasn't far from my house. I parked the car and I didn't get out the car. I parked the car. I sat there for maybe 30 seconds before I put the car in reverse. I drove back to Wendy's and I apologized to the lady at the window because it took me all of 3 minutes to understand that one, that behavior was out of my character. Two, that lady, no matter what was going on with my day, that lady didn't deserve for me to snap on her like that. Right. And three, even if the lady said, hey, I'm not tripping, which she wasn't, but I was like, whether she felt disrespected or not, I felt like I was disrespectful. Right. So the third point is in dealing with self-forgiveness, I have to acknowledge what it is I want to do differently and then make the behavior to do it differently. If I can't get to self-forgiveness if I keep doing the behavior that I'm saying I forgive myself for. So this is why sometimes it's hard to forgive ourselves when our behavior has not changed. If you don't make the new decision, I can't truly get to a place of self-forgiveness. So the triangle of self-forgiveness means one, acknowledge what happened, acknowledge why it happened, and then acknowledge what you want to do differently, right? When you do the new behavior, I'm building proof that I am a good person, right? So I can look back on that situation and I can laugh about it, right? There's no shame, but I know, Brittany, first of all, fries and a frosty is indicators that you're probably in an emotional space, right? And I'm more self-aware of where I am emotionally when I'm interacting with people. Right. So I know when I need to step away. I know when, hey, Brittany, hey, you need to go take 5 deep breaths. Right. Or hey, right now is not the time for you to be talking to people, period. Let's just wait. Right. Because I'm now self-aware, but you don't get to that level of self-awareness without doing this work. All right. So my Daily Fix people, y'all will get a copy of this triangle. Everybody else on TikTok, Instagram, screenshot it. Okay, I'm going to my next point. Dealing with the shame. Dealing with the shame. Dealing with the shame. Mm. There we go. I have so much going on right now. Okay. Again, if you're just now joining, this is the Daily Fix hosted by Brittany Noel. And this is what I do every morning in my meetup group. Okay. When you join the Daily Fix, you get access to over 300 sessions that I've already done like this. So if you're working on identity, if you're trying to learn how to regulate your emotions, okay, we talk about that a lot in the Daily Fix. If you're trying to navigate relationships, if you're trying to understand your attachment style, all of that is already in the Daily Fix. So just join the Daily Fix. You'll get access to all of our sessions that we've done in the last 3 years, but you're also going to get access to the identity workshop that I'm hosting this Thursday in the Daily Fix. All right. So join, go to dailyfix.co. I'm going to put the QR code up there real quick. And then I'll see you guys on Thursday. All right. Let's go into my second point. Let's go in. You know what has been in my, like, just taking up space in my brain? It's that song that the R&B singer, but it's the Mulan, let's get down to business. That has been living in my brain. To defeat the Huns. I have been singing that nonstop. Intrusive thoughts. Okay. All right. Let's get down to business. Part two. Well, point number two. Um, if you're just joining, we're talking about self-forgiveness. All right. Yesterday in the Daily Fix, we talked about forgiving others and how to forgive others and what to forgive them for. And today we're talking about self-forgiveness. So you cannot have the conversation about self-forgiveness without dealing with shame. Okay. Shame is a heavy emotion. It's even heavier, as I've seen it, for women. I always say if there's a kryptonite emotion for women and men, women, our kryptonite is shame, feeling ashamed or being in shame with ourselves. And for men, most times it's embarrassment because it hits their ego, right? So with women, shame is it. This is why they say the stereotype women don't take accountability. It's not that they don't want to take accountability, their ego is running from shame. And so because I don't want to be ashamed of myself or ashamed of my behavior, it's hard to take accountability. Not because I don't want to be accountable, it's because I don't want to sit in the feeling of shame. All right. The reason why shame is such a hard emotion to deal with is because it has a lot to do with identity. Shame has a voice. So it's an emotion, but shame has a voice. Shame always makes you feel inadequate. It'll say, I'm not enough. I'm not lovable. I'm broken. I always ruin things. I always mess things up. I'm not pretty enough to be loved. I'm not smart enough to get the promotion. Shame makes whatever the situation was, whatever the breakdown was, it makes it about your identity. So this is why shame is such a difficult emotion to confront, because in order to confront shame, I got to, one, know who I am. You got to know who you are when you're dealing with shame, because shame is going to always tell you who you're not. So if you don't have a real sense of a healthy sense of identity, shame will be, it's like y'all in a boxing ring and shame got you up against the ropes. Okay. Because shame will always minimize who you are. and tell you that you don't deserve certain things and that you're not good enough for certain things. This is why when you make a mistake or when you get things wrong, you have to confront it fast. I always say the quicker I acknowledge my bad behavior, the quicker I acknowledge and adjust my bad behavior, it leaves less time for shame to come in and say, "Oh, you think you a good therapist? You a bad therapist. You think that you this, you that." Right? I remember I was about to quit. Listen, I told somebody this story the other day. When I was a baby therapist, a baby social worker, during Hurricane Harvey, I made a huge mistake because I was literally one of the only therapists that made it into the hospital during the hurricane. I made a huge mistake that triggered a whole group of patients. And I said, I went to my, and they were fine with it. They were like, hey, that was rough, but we worked through it and we did the therapeutic, repair, right? We fixed it. But I felt so bad about it, right? And so I had shame that says, "Oh my gosh, you're a bad therapist. You're not going to be good at this. You re-triggered a whole group of combat veterans." Like I had so much shame. I went to the psychologist that I work with, and I was like, "I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit." It's like I cannot do this because even to this day, I feel horrible about that, right? I'm a new social worker. I made a mistake. I got it wrong, right? There's nothing that you will do in your life, especially if it's something new. It don't matter what it is. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to get it wrong. And that's what she was like, Brittany, we have all been in that seat where we have made a mistake. We did the wrong thing. We thought we were helping and it turned out not to help. You made a mistake, right? And she was like, you can forgive yourself for this mistake or you can just quit. What are you going to do? And I was like, I need therapy, right? I need my own therapist, right? But shame will have you quit relationships, quit marriages, walk out on your business, walk out on your career because you got something wrong. And instead of confronting it and changing the behavior, shame will have you run away thinking that you're not the person who deserves it. Right? So shame is an emotion that has to be confronted in order for us to get to self forgiveness, right? So I always say to deal with shame, shame is like mold, right? So if I leave mold in a dark place, um, I got real technical for a reason. If I leave my shame in a very dark place, it grows, right? So mold grows in dark and warm spaces. So when I do not put light on my shame, I'm giving it permission to grow. When I don't put light on my shame, I give it permission to grow. So, a part of the cure for shame is to put light on it. That means I have to expose it. That means I have to speak it. That means I have to share it. That means I have to get it out. As long as I keep it back in the closet, it's growing because shame grows in dark spaces. So this is why it's good sometimes for us to be in therapy where we can get it out, or to be in a group setting where I can get it out. If I'm ashamed of it, I got to put light on it. If I don't put light on it, it keeps growing. So once I put light on it, now I can take accountability, right? This action didn't align with who I'm becoming. I'm choosing a new behavior. I made a choice that I regret, but I can repair it. I can take accountability without condemning myself. I can take accountability without condemning myself, right? Making a mistake didn't make me stupid. Making a mistake didn't make me inadequate. Making a mistake didn't make me anything, right? That's the identity part of it. But I can say, I made this mistake, but I'm not a person who can keep making this mistake, right? I can take responsibility without condemning myself, right? So, I, second homework assignment. I want us to practice shifting our language when we're telling our stories. I want us to practice shifting our language when we tell our stories, right? Shame will say, I ruined everything. Accountability will say, I made some decisions from a place of pain and now I can choose differently, right? Notice how that feels in your body when you move from I messed up everything, I ruined everything, to I made some decisions from my own place of pain and I can choose differently now, right? Start shifting your language. When I shift in that reframe, what I did was I inserted the why. The why, yes, I made the decision. I made the decision because I was in pain. I was in survival mode. I was unaware, right? And now I can choose differently. So I can take accountability for the bad decisions because I understand who I was at that time. I understand why I was there at that time. And then I insert what I'm doing now. That's the new decision. How we feeling? I feel like I'm giving y'all a lot of information. TikTok, how we doing? How we doing on TikTok? How we doing on Instagram? Listen, to all my daily fix people, so y'all get this every day. But TikTok and Instagram, they were just going about their day and they just happened to log on and was like, hold on, wait a minute, I didn't ask for this. I always feel bad because, the Daily Fix knows what to expect. Everybody else doesn't. And so now everybody's like, why am I at work about to have a whole mental moment? Okay. All right. I'm sorry if I caught you guys off guard, but welcome to the Daily Fix. This is the work we do every day. The reason why I love the Daily Fix is because it makes healing practical, number one, and you're working on yourself every day, right? Versus you go into a therapy appointment every couple of weeks or once a month. You actually get actionable, tangible items to work on every day, right? And you get a community. The Daily Fix is a beautiful community. We are worldwide at this point. We have UK members, Austria members, we have our South Africa members. We have a whole bunch of members. We got Jamaica in the house. We have members everywhere. So when you join the Daily Fix, you also get a accountability group who hold you. We hold each other accountable in a loving way, but we're all on the same page here. We're all about growth and moving forward. All right. She said it's new. It's a lot. Very good. I know it's a lot, y'all. I know it's a lot, but I promise you, I promise you, it's gonna help. Okay. All right. Let me get back to my points. Let me get back to my points. Okay, I'm gonna make this last point. I said two. Oh, okay. I'm gonna integrate these two. So in self-forgiveness, there's a part and a piece of self-forgiveness that you'll get to where you have to release the version of yourself who didn't know better, right? There's a large part of our own forgiveness process where a lot of the decisions that we made that either hurt ourselves or hurt other people, I made those decisions because I didn't know better. I didn't have the skills, I didn't have the tools. I was just out here trying to survive, right? When you're in survival mode, your brain shuts off long term planning. This is why when I live in survival, the most I can probably plan is maybe a year in advance if I'm lucky, right? Sometimes you'll get to 2 years. But when I'm in survival mode, I have a hard time planning 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. Everything is about what do I need right now to survive the moment or survive my emotions, get to next Friday, get to my next paycheck. What does survival has to deal with the now, right? So when I'm in the now, I'm making many decisions that I'm not thinking about how this is going to affect me 10 years from now. I'm not thinking about how it's going to affect the kids 10 years from now, right? I'm not thinking about how it's going to show up on my credit score, right? I'm just like, hey, I need the money right now, okay? You're not thinking and planning for a long term solution because I need solutions that fix right now. right? So this is where if you are in survival mode, most times you're emotionally dysregulated, which means I'm making decisions that will satisfy how I feel right now. So this is where binge eating comes from. This is where emotional spending comes from. This is where harmful behavior comes from. You increase drinking, you start checking out, you're gaming more, you're participating in risky behavior more because I'm trying to survive the moment emotionally. And this is the best way I know how to do it. Your thinking is short term and is very narrow. When I'm in survival mode, I have to rely on old patterns, right? So, this is why, even if you've been growing and then you go back into survival, you'll see yourself going back to old behavior, right? And you're like, man, I thought I outgrew this, right? It's not that you didn't outgrow it. It's when I'm in survival, my brain defaults to what it knows. Right. So to go back to old patterns because those old patterns protected me back in the day, right? Those old patterns kept me from self destructing back in the day. So it goes back to what it used to do because it's trying to survive, right? When I'm in survival mode, my brain will always prioritize comfort over growth. I want what's comfortable. I want what's predictable. I want what's easy when I'm in survival mode. And many times those things are not things that we actually want. We don't actually want them. It's just easier. It's just easier, right? So that means that if I've been in a place of survival, there are going to be things that I did, things that I participated in, people that I loved, people that I let close to me, risky decisions that I took that didn't work out. There are going to be things that happened while I was in survival that I now get to look back at and say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. Oh my gosh," like you just cringe at the thought that you were that person, right? Here's the thing, you're judging a past version of yourself with knowledge that you have today only because of the mistake you made, right? You only have the luxury to judge yourself because now you know better. Always think about that. I can't judge the previous versions of Brittany because those versions of Brittany didn't have the knowledge that I have today, right? And the only reason why I have the knowledge I have today is because of what I've lived through. Without living through it, there's nothing to grow through. So if anything, I have a lot of compassion for previous versions of myself because I was living through a lot of chaos with a very limited skill set. So every skill that I have today, I had to go get. But it was the previous versions of myself that had to live through those days where there were no skills, there were no tools. I was just winging it and figuring it out and hoping for the best. And did I get a lot of stuff wrong in that season? Yes. Were there decisions that I made that I wish I didn't make? Sure. Right. Which brings me to my next point. Were there people that I stayed with that I probably stayed too long? Yes. I think one of the most common things between men, women, if you've been living on this earth long enough, you will reach a place in your life where you have to forgive yourself for staying too long. And this is where I'm going to close it out at. All right. I want you to think about the relationships that you stayed too long in, whether it was romantic relationships, whether it was relationships with our parents that weren't healthy, whether it was friendships that we were trying to keep, whether it was jobs that I was trying to keep. People don't stay in these situations because they're foolish or they're dumb or they just want to hurt themselves. Most times, when we stay in situations too long, number one, you have injuries to your attachment style, right? Most times it means that you're operating from a damaged or an unhealthy attachment, which means my disorganized, my anxious, my avoidant attachment style is activated and it's doing the work. I'm not actually choosing my partners, my attachments are, right? So this is where you're going to see trauma bonds that look like love. You're going to see that you gravitate towards people that feel familiar even though familiar was never good for you. Okay. If I grew up in an abusive home, that means that partners who are aggressive or abusive feel familiar to me. Right? So when I operate from my attachment, I can end up staying in things that aren't healthy for me simply because it's what I know. right? You also stay too long because of hope cycles. All right. Now, my hope cycles is for everybody who are my hopeless romantic. Where are all my hopeless romantics in the chat? Okay. If that's you, just say you. All right. Hope cycles are when you see small moments of improvement in your relationship, right? So, we've been arguing and then they go out and they buy my favorite candy, or they say that they're going to change, and they called me more, they text me more, or we went on a nice date. And so you see these small moments of improvements that trick my brain into thinking that change is actually possible. Right. And so instead of accepting the person as they are, I cling to the hope because I had these little bitty moments of hope that made me believe that change was taking place when really it wasn't. It was a cycle. They knew what to do, they knew what to say to keep you, right? Because I was holding on to hope, and that stopped me from accepting who they were. Right. So you can be in cycles of hope, just clinging to these little pockets of hope every now and again. You also have what's called learned helplessness. When nothing you try works, the nervous system stops believing that it exists. Okay. Learned helplessness can be passed down. It can be hereditary, meaning, nah, I won't say hereditary, it's learned behavior, right? So if I grew up with parents who had a poverty type mindset, or they had a hard time believing that better was possible, I can learn and I can inherit beliefs and I can inherit behaviors that say, no matter what I do, it's not going to work out. Right? Learned helplessness can also happen when I have been stuck in chronic chaos, meaning it's been perpetual. It's been situation after situation after situation after situation that I've been dealing with chaos and trauma and harm, that I learn that no matter how hard I try to, get out of this, bad stuff keeps happening. Right? Learned helplessness is you need a therapist. It is very hard to combat by yourself, because when you're stuck in a cycle of learned helplessness, you're it's hard for you to know when your thoughts are working against you. It'll feel so normal to have a defeated thought. Like, the defeated thoughts they don't sound like defeat. They sound rational, right? So when you are stuck in learned helplessness, I can't stress how important it is for you to be with a therapist who can help you weed through those thoughts and to find the thoughts that aren't true. And then the last reason why we stay too long in relationships or situations is because we can have a lot of cognitive dissonance, right? Um, Cognitive dissonance is when there is a internal battle with myself, where it's like, if I leave, then I have to admit that this wasn't what I thought it was. Right? Because I went on Instagram, I posted pictures. I was like, God said, this is my husband. And now, if I have to leave, does that mean that God lied, or maybe I didn't hear him? Or there's this internal battle now, because now making the new decision, I have to confront myself in order to make the new decision, right? And sometimes the new decision means that there's a battle between my head and my heart. They're not on the same page, and so I'm trying to come to an agreement with myself about what this means. And so you can have a lot of cognitive dissonance, because the new decisions means I have to adopt a new understanding or a new reality or a new identity in order for me to make the new decision. And that's hard, right? That's difficult. I want you to consider that if I stayed in something too long, it wasn't because I was weak. Most times we stayed because the best parts of ourselves didn't know how to disconnect. I stayed because I was loyal. I stayed because I was hopeful. I stayed because I was trying. And those were the parts of me that didn't want to disconnect for whatever reason. I didn't want to disconnect because, I believe in love. I didn't want to disconnect because I wanted to build a family. I didn't want to disconnect because I didn't want to be seen as a failure. I didn't want to disconnect because I didn't want to release my hope of what it could be, right? When we get to self-forgiveness for why I stayed, you get to a place where you can what need, I always say, what need was I trying to get met, right? When I stay in situations for too long, what need was I trying to get met? And this is where you're going to find compassion for yourself, because many times we stayed because if we just allowed ourselves to admit it, if I hopped past my ego, if I just admitted I stayed because I was trying to be loved. I stayed because I wanted to give my kids a home that I didn't have. I stayed because I couldn't admit to myself that this wasn't the person. I stayed because I thought that I can prove to them that I was worthy of love. If we just allowed ourselves to say the truth out loud, we can get to self-compassion, because I always think about, is it really a bad thing for me to want to be loved? Is it really a bad thing for me to want someone to share my life with? Is it really a bad thing? Those things aren't inherently bad. All by themselves, they're not bad things. But I made the wrong decision about how I was going to get that need met. I picked the wrong person trying to get that need met. I picked the wrong situation trying to get that need met. So now I can have more compassion for why I did what I did, instead of judging myself for why I did what I did. In order to stop staying in situations too long, okay, the daily fix, y'all are tired of me saying this. Radical acceptance, right? Look at people for who they are, not who I wish they were. Look at them for who they are, not what I wished they were. Including ourselves. Including ourselves. All right? Last homework assignment of the day. I want you to ask yourself, well, or when you, I don't know where y'all are. I want you to write down, what do I feel I haven't forgiven myself for? What have I still not forgiven myself for? And keep in mind, sometimes the things that we haven't forgiven ourselves for, they're not always apparent, because sometimes we hide it really well, right? But it comes out in our behavior. It comes out in your perfectionism. It comes out in how you minimize yourself. It comes out in why you don't trust yourself. If you have a hard time trusting yourself, there is something that you are not forgiving yourself for. It comes out in how you over apologize and how you over explain. It comes out in how you are very critical of yourself, of how you look and how you act. You edit yourself a lot, right? So sometimes you can see the behavior before you can really identify what have I not forgiven myself for. So if you see behavior towards yourself that's unkind, unloving, ask yourself, what is there something I'm punishing myself for? Is there something I don't trust myself with? And that'll get you to that list of things that I'm still trying to forgive. Once you identify what you want to forgive, I want you to go through that triangle, those three questions that you asked on the triangle. What was it? Why did it happen? And what is the new behavior, right? I want you to do that for as many things as you need to do it for. Okay, because our goal is to go into 2026 light. We don't want to go into the new year with all of this baggage. So if there's something that you want to forgive yourself for before we go into our new year, do the assignment, do the work. All right. You can still get to a place where I can acknowledge and forgive and walk into 2026 with a clean slate. All right. All right. How we feeling? How we feeling? How we feeling? Mm-mm, mm-mm. Daily Fix, y'all look so good in the comments. I hope this was good for you guys. For all of our guests who have joined us today, I'm happy that you're here. I hope you found value in what we do. I will keep this replay on my YouTube. So for all of our guests who are not in the Daily Fix, you can watch this one on YouTube. But if you want to be with me every morning, all right, then you want to join the Daily Fix, all right? Go to dailyfix.co. You can join and sign up. We're doing our identity workshop this Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is where I'm going to teach you how to define yourself in a healthy way, not based on what I've been through, but to truly create a self identity. That's going to happen this Thursday. So it's free as long as you're in the Daily Fix. So if for nothing else, join the Daily Fix because it's going to be a good workshop. But my goal was to give you guys tools to walk into the new year with a new understanding of who you are. All right. When you have a new understanding of who you are, you show up in the world differently. I don't want you to make all these New Year resolutions with the same mindset and the same identity because then I'm going to repeat the same cycles. All right. So join the Daily Fix, and I will see to all my Daily Fix tribe. I'm going to see you guys in the morning tomorrow. For all my Instagram, TikTok people, I'm going to see you next week because I try to go live at least once a week. So y'all have an amazing Tuesday. A thankful Tuesday, a terrific Tuesday, a tantalizing Tuesday.